note for GCTV purposes. So they will be broadcasting and recording this portion of the meeting, but at 10:30, they're going to break away to the Board of Select meeting up in the Cone Room. Our meeting will still be recorded and will resume live after the conclusion of the Board of Ed meeting. But just so anyone who might be watching, that's what's going to happen today. So we welcome the Parks and Rec Director, Joe Siciliano, and Assistant Director, Dan Carlson. This morning, we're going to hear from you, followed by Fleet. They're scheduled for 10. We might be a little bit later. We'll see how it goes. And then at 11, we're going to meet with the labor negotiator in executive session for a brief period of time, and then have also a public discussion with the labor negotiator. We're going to break for lunch at noon, and then we're going to resume with IT, information technology, after lunch with Tom Klein, and then we're going to conclude with health with Carolyn Baisley, and then that should do it for us. We might have some house cleaning, see where we are at the end of the day. If Elliot's here, I think he's prepared to give a report from both HR and IAC. So, and we might get a written report from Stephen Selps on law, but we've done a lot of work in the previous 5 days, so we expect this day to be just as productive. All right, so with that, Joe and Dan, I don't know if you have any introductory comments you'd like to make about the budget. We'll start with the operating budget. We're going to cover revenues as well as capital.
Okay, just a couple of quick overview. First of all, I'd like to I want to recognize Dan and the staff for putting this budget together. I was out on medical leave when the submittal was, and they did a great job under Dan's leadership. So if Dan may be answering a whole lot more questions than I might be today, because he really built the foundation of the budget and has a lot of the information. Just a couple things. Parks and Recreation budget came in at 2.8%. A little bit above the guidelines of 2.75. We've taken a total look at our capital, 5-year capital plan, and have updated that in December. We've taken our fee schedule in front of the Board of Selectmen for approval, also on December 23rd. With the approval of some of the fees that the Board of Selectmen made, our revenue estimate is up $495,000, a little bit more than you're seeing in your budget book, but we will make sure that Joan and Agnes get those updated numbers based on the fees that were approved by the Board of Selectmen. Let's see. As far as the process goes, we build our budget from the division level up, not only at the expense side, but also at the revenue side and fee recommendations. Our budget has already been through the Office of the First Selectman, the Town Administrator, the Board of Parks and Recreation, kind of for an overview. So that's been out there, and that includes not only the main portion of the budget for Parks and Recreation, but also the golf course budget also has been kind of aired out a little bit. Some of the drivers in our current budget, again, since have been a minimum wage issue, as it keeps going up every year, it's projected to be $16.94 per hour. And there's another little twist here, which is that's been approved. There's some sick leave for some temporary seasonal employees. Sometimes when you have a lot of, and we do have approximately 300 seasonal employees that we hire. Sometimes, we have to deal with that, because if they're out sick, they can earn some sick time, and if they're out sick, we have to substitute them in with another body to make the programs work. Our FTEs for next year, our FTEs for 2026 was 59.66. Proposed for 27 is 59.85. Our full-time head count will stay at 101, and the golf course will stay at 8 full-time employees. So that's just kind of a brief overview to set the stage for any questions you might have on our capital budget. Glad to answer questions or go through sections however you'd like to. It's however you want to start the conversation.
I just want to clarify the head count. So the full-time equivalents are 101 positions, right?
Correct.
Okay, I thought I misheard you. Excellent. Dan, do you want to add any additional comments? Thank you for being the budget guru in Joe's absence.
Yeah, no problem. I think Joe, kind of covered it. We spent a lot of time over the, past few months making sure that we have the right numbers, looking at our past practices, actuals from previous years, trying to look ahead, talk with our consultants, seeing, what might be on the rise in costs, whether it be equipment or, types of projects, things like that. So, we're trying to use, both past, future, history, to make sure that we land at the budgeted numbers that we're comfortable with. So,
We try to tie a lot of our requests back to reports that we've generated, the ferry report, Pomerantz-Tuckman report, ADA reports, the golf course report, field reports. So we have a lot of consulting work that we've done in the past, and we try to tie a lot of our, especially our capital requests, to those reports, so that we actually had the report was done, and we want to be able to execute that in various stages. So a lot of what we've asked for in the last few years, and some of the budget requests, especially on the capital side, have been tied back to some of those reports that you've approved and paid for, and we should use those as our guiding documents in order to make those requests.
Excellent. All right, so we're going to start on page 119 of the budget book.
Can I actually can we take a bit of a step back? And I appreciate all the comments and the reliance on the work and whatnot. I guess just coming from a strategy perspective, I guess, how do you think about introducing new programs, discontinuing programs? Kind of walk through more just as you're kind of planning what Parks and Rec will be providing in the year ahead. How do you think about that? How do you meet new need? How do you say, all right, there's less need here, we can get rid of this program or reduce it?
Interesting part is that I think we've been relatively progressive in using social media. I mean, my assistant Lenore has become really great at doing this. We publicize our programs in social media. I mean, we post a lot. We have a newsletter that goes out to the public. We have a number of people that receive that newsletter. It's free. It goes out like once a month. We also use, the media. We have print documents that are available for folks. I'm just trying to think about, the various means that we use to send out our offerings. We have a huge database. I mean, Parks and Recreation probably has one of the largest resident databases in the town, in the sense that people sign up for park passes and programs. And we're able to capitalize on all of that database. And basically, we can do it by email. I mean, we can drop emails to people that are head of households and have signed up for our programs that, these are our offerings. And, I think it's been relatively successful. But, there may be other ways to kind of get across. But we do it electronically through various means of newsletters, posting, using our own email system that we probably have about, 16 or 17,000 email addresses in our database. And these are people that are actively using our programs, whether it's park passes, programs that they sign up for, et cetera. So we're able to communicate with them that way. And I think it's pretty successful because our programs are relatively, have good attendance. Our offerings each year are popular. And it seems that we've been able to accomplish that through a lot of electronic media.
Can I and I appreciate that of kind of how you market and kind of communicate programs, but my question was more just about, you have a menu of offerings. How do you decide what to add to the menu in a given year or over a couple of years? How do you decide what to remove from that menu?
Well, I think, a lot of it, a lot of our staff belongs to professional parks and recreation associations, so we network a lot with other professionals, read what's out there. You can kind of pick up on the trends nationally, but we also, put a lot of input into residential feedback. I mean, we work closely with all of our user groups, all of our teams. We have a very close relationship, have ongoing meetings to meet their needs. We bounce some ideas off them. And sometimes, we like to implement things, on a trial run to see what works. Kind of at, the new Civic Center, one of the things that we implemented was a tiny tumblers program where people can bring, their young kid. We have a ball pit, a couple other things like that. We started with 2 classes. I think with with 12 people each, and now both of them are at capacity at 24, and we're even looking to expand that. It's sold out every day. We've had lines out the building with that. So, we react to those trends. We see that it's popular, so we're making more offerings for that and trying to make it more convenient. We're looking to have an online booking feature rather than a physical sign-in at the front due to the capacity there. We also started an adult volleyball program at the Civic Center. And again, we see the usage, we see the people coming in and utilizing it, so we think that's going to be a mainstay there. Obviously, we have our pickleball organization, our, kind of semi-formal organization throughout town. They give us a lot of feedback. Of course, they would like more courts, and that's something that we're dedicated to. We're building 4 new dedicated pickleball courts at the Civic Center right now, and then working on, in future years, going to be renovating the courts right next door that are pickleball hybrid courts
We
there.
have not been afraid of actually we have not been afraid of actually conducting interdepartmental surveys with the public. We've done this over the years. I don't think we've done one in a couple of years, but to communicate with the public. A lot of times it's just getting some feedback, getting it out there. The most valuable part is some of the things that when we do a survey that's not, town-wide, it's just about Parks and Recreation, is the comments that you receive from the surveys. Last time we received over 1,100 comments in writing. We try to categorize those comments because somewhere in there's a message, okay? And that message could be, something like the trash doesn't get picked up in the park enough times during the week or something like that. So if you can get some of that information together, you can look at like where you need to put some emphasis and maybe, this is just an observation, but it might be an observation of many people that use the facilities. So we've done some survey work over the years. I don't think we've done one in maybe 2 years or so.
Probably do.
We're not afraid to throw that out there just to see what, the trend is, what people are interested in, and some of the observation about how we operate our facilities. So it's all great information. And sometimes you can just pick a few of those things and get something done because you're looking at, we kind of working at seasonal, operations where it changes every season, and sometimes we lose sight of that. But our constituents will tell us, in some of that information that we collect.
Thank you, Joe. Joe Kelly, do you have a question?
Well, Doug asked a great question, and can I specifically build on his question a little bit? Say, for example, I wanted to initiate a beach volleyball at Todd's Point. Can you talk me through? I would make a phone call and say, hey, Joe, I would like to organize a beach volleyball at Todd's Point. What procedure would I have to follow in order to organize that?
If it's becoming a regular thing, or if you wanted to have like a tournament, okay? So if you want to have like a tournament, there's a weekend, we have a special event kind of program that we have, and we would put that in there in the sense that, it might be a weekend program, just one throughout the summer. So we have a format that you follow. You can fill out a form. It comes into the office. We ask you for some baseline information, who you are, what constituents you're trying to provide this program to, how many people you anticipate, time duration, those kinds of things. And it gives us the first talking point so that we can actually communicate. Right now, we are pretty much managing about 70 special event requests, and they're not all Parks and Recreation requests. They're from private citizens and private groups. And what happens is that we request every year that they fill out this form, give us the information. We have Andrew Karen, who's the manager of the Cone Eastern Greenwich Civic Center, building manager, also is assigned to review all of these. And interesting enough, we set up meetings with each one of these individual requests every year to kind of review them, whether it's, on the phone or in person. Some of the new ones we do in person, but at the opportunity for them to kind of tell us what they want to do, evaluate it. Sometimes it's a great idea, sometimes it's not such a great idea. But at the end of the day, we give people their fair opportunity to say, we're interested in this, and maybe this would be an interest of the town, townwide too. So we have a process that we follow by starting with an application form. It's pretty simple. It's like one page, but it's a collection point to start the conversations.
All right, so some experience in the past has said that a lot of times it's been you've worked well with groups that try to get stuff done in the past. Also, sometimes it's complicated. It's been described to me at times, because as you know, I'm very involved in sports in town. And some people who want to initiate something run out of steam because they say it's complicated. So, but a lot of times, certainly like old man's basketball, that league that started, that I was very working closely with the guys who did that, and it was a great league. It caters to about 100 players or so. But basically, the path of getting there is, I'd like to go over that more because it seems sometimes complicated. Do you think it's complicated, or do you think it's relatively easy?
Well, we're glad to, walk you through it when you have a minute. And, but it's not that complicated. A lot of times what's the complicated part about it is that, we have to look at all these program requests globally, in the sense that, sometimes people just target a small group of people. But, when we start to look at these programs and share our facilities, and it has to be, a little bit broader. I mean, in the sense that, one of the first priorities, how many people in the public that we serve is, because it's going to affect, what's the scope, what's the time frame, what's the commitment? I mean, and sometimes people get a little discouraged because what they're offering or what they're suggesting is a little bit more narrow. And we look at it like, if it's good for a bunch of people, maybe it's a good program to kind of really get involved with.
Thank you, Joe. All right, this is all really interesting, but I think we want to get back to the budget. No, it's all right. I just wanted to talk, I think we're going to go through by division, but I just wanted for you to discuss, so there's been no change in headcount, yet you've opened Cohen Eastern Greenwich Civic Center. I know you're down from a number of years ago, the number of maintenance people on the fields. Talk about how you've been able to do that.
Well, okay, let me just talk, I can talk on the historical side, and then, I'll turn it over to Dan, but about 15, I've been the director for 25 years, but somewhere in that whole directorship, about 15 years ago, there was a discussion going on about, consolidation. Okay, we took on the Board of Ed program, the Fields program, we took on the maintenance of the outside of the green space and the outside of the Board of Ed buildings. So it took us a little while to kind of get a handle on like what they did versus what we were doing in parks. But we went through this whole process of looking at, interesting enough, you brought that up because I made the notes in the back, that we went back from 123 full-time employees to right now 101. And the way we did this, and a lot of it we did through attrition, but we looked at targeted jobs that we would eliminate once they became available, is that, first of all, out of the 123 people, 3 people went to the Commission on Aging we used to manage the senior program. 3 of those people went to the Commission on Aging. So I can't take credit for that, but I'll take credit for the balance of them. In the sense that we outsourced 5, we took a tree crew, which was 5 people, and we outsourced the tree crew work, okay? So we had 3 tree crews, we consolidated to 2 tree crews, and we outsourced 1 tree crew's worth of work, which is in our budget. Every year you funded that. And basically what it was is to do some of the more routine type of work, okay? We know this year we're going to take down this many trees, okay? So we would give them those assignments. We still can work, work orders, and we can work storms and all that kind of stuff. But so that was one of the approaches. 5 tree in the tree crew. We were able to consolidate 3 ferry captains into 1 full-time ferry captain and hire seasonal. We were able to consolidate 3 dock masters, full-time dock masters, into 1 full-time dock master and 2 seasonals. We were able to eliminate 1 recreation coordinator's position. That was a full-time position that we had. We were able to eliminate 1 maintenance mechanic from the marine facility operations. And we were able to decrease our head count in park gardeners by 9. So that's 20 positions, plus the 3 we sent over to the Commission on Aging. We did this strategically, and we put the right management people in charge. We put operational management people on oversight so that we can get more productivity out of our folks. Obviously, through attrition, we were able to hire people that more skilled and maybe really wanted to be here, that weren't timing out at the end of their career. And we were able to, and one of the important things, and this is one of the reasons why I think this is a great conversation, is that one of the pitches that we made during this whole consolidation process is the equipment. okay? When we talked about downsizing and consolidating and doing all this great stuff, we have to have modernized equipment that is well-maintained, that is available for us to use every single day that we need it, and not old equipment. Because, you know, a lot of times we were dealing with a lot of old equipment. It was in the shop more than was available for us to use. We were using some very, secondary ways of getting work done. So it's really important when we ask for replacement equipment to follow that, to follow the replacement schedule so that we can keep the production level up as high as we can with the minimum amount of people. I mean, we reduced our headcount by 20 full-time employees since I've been the director. And I'm proud of that in the sense that we have a better team now. We have better management oversight. We're more productive. We're hiring the right people. We're hiring the right skilled people. And and the equipment allowance allows us to do that work. We actually even took on Cascade Park. We took on two small parks in Byram, little mini parks on South Water Street. So we were able to take on a couple of additional properties. There is a breaking point to all of this, but at the end of the day, we took those properties on without adding for any additional headcount. So it just takes that management oversight and everybody working together every single day at the division head level and at the operational management level in order to get the work done and to prioritize. And that's how we've been able to do this. And you know what? I think we're a better department for it. I mean, in the sense that we have a mission, we know the drivers every single day, we know exactly what we need to get accomplished. And, sometimes when we push back a little bit is because we're at the edge of that breaking point of like, what is too much for where we are today. But, 20 full-time employees is a huge, it's 20% of our department. It's a huge number. I mean, so,
Thank you, Joe. I think that's a really good perspective over the years.
yeah.
Yeah, Laura,
Yes, Sally?
just real quick, Matt and I had the opportunity to meet with Dan and with Joe, and the one thing which I think everybody is aware of, that Joe and his team are still in the process of reviewing the new rink and what the headcount might be. So that number isn't in here, just to be, yeah.
It
just wanna
won't
make
be in
sure.
there.
Well, the new rink hasn't been built yet, so
Yeah,
we'll
yeah,
get to
no,
that
just,
when we get to that. But
but
thank
even
you.
the plan,
Thank you.
yeah, just wanted to mention that.
Tomorrow, when we give you our budget, we put together some budgetary numbers, and let's just talk about that a minute. We actually took a.
So
good
just clarify what you're talking about, just
Oh,
because
the
not
budget, we're
everyone
talking
knows.
about the
The
document that
operations
the
plan, yeah.
Budget Committee and the BET's asked for about the rink, the expense and some revenue, and a model of the staffing model. So we put this together, and we've actually, the reason why we've been laboring over this is that it's hard to put out numbers that people want to attach themselves to. So we did a relatively good job of looking at other 12-month operations. We've met at least a half a dozen times internally to kind of look at how the expense, how we're going to generate revenue on a 12-month basis, and the staffing model that we really want. We'll have that in your hands tomorrow, as promised. But, there's, it will, we are going to have to deal with staffing in the sense that we're going to be running a full-time operation versus a 7-month operation. So we're going to have to deal with some of that. We also looked at it towards the lines of that this would be in a special fund, okay? So when we looked at the revenue generation and the expense, we're looking at it, are we going to put, is that the way we're going to go? It's been the discussion so far for a couple of years to put it in a special fund like we operate the golf course. We've set these numbers up and the revenue stream so that it would model the golf course program. And so that what we would do is we would be suggesting that this would be in a separate revenue fund, revolving fund like the golf course. So, and again, that shifts a lot of the expense. And also, we've also included benefits for the full-time employees that we're going to recommend. And so it's all laid out in this document that you'll receive tomorrow.
Excellent, thank you. All right, let's go to P&R Administration, 801 on page 125, 2.5% increase. Does anyone have specific questions? Recreation, 812 on page 127, also 2.5%. Doug?
Yeah, pop in here. So something I sent you guys ahead of time is just, if you look for recreation and the various youth and adult programs we have, we've seen a consistent downward trend in participation across town. Be it the various sports, be it the adult sport leagues, whatnot. And I know there are exceptions, paddle or pickleball, et cetera. Can you just walk through why you think that is and how you all have changed your operations over time to kind of address those changes in participation?
Yeah, certainly. So obviously can vary across the sport. There could be different reasons for different sports here, but kind of on a macro level, I mean, I kind of lived it, in the mid 2000s, that was when everybody kind of started seeing the transition from, playing in your local little league or your local community league to where a lot of kids go to the travel leagues to further their development. So, well, our programs went a little bit smaller. These travel teams that developed in Greenwich were still utilizing our public fields. So there's that trade-off where we recognized that kids were moving away from Little League and going to Travel League. And so we would reduce our programs, which would, reduce our budget, our staff that we would utilize. And then we would open up that field space to these third-party groups. So there is that transition there. And it does kind of depend on the sport, as I said, like our softball league is actually starting to trend back upwards. It could be cyclical depending on kind of what the needs and wants of the community are. After this Olympics, we might see a trend in hockey increasing. We just worked with a third-party organization to develop a girls' flag football league. That's going to be an Olympic sport in the next summer games. So, those are trending upwards. And even though that's not our actual operations that we're running, we're providing them field space and working with them on the scheduling aspect. So that's kind of where the trade-off is. So our fields are pretty much always at capacity and have been for decades, and they're even at a shortage. It just, it depends on whether it's our programming.
And I guess the kind of important thing is you laid out in there is that, participation goes up, you may need to increase budget, but you have been tactical and thoughtful of decreasing budget in areas where participation has fallen.
Yes, pretty much all of our recreational offerings are kind of at budget or revenue positive, so.
And plus, we try to keep the philosophy of what is public recreation all about. I mean, some of these other groups that we support with field time and scheduling and all those other things that we do are more competitive. Their travel, and we felt that as a department, that's a good place for them to be, is some of those privatized groups that are out there, and we would have some of our offerings would kind of lend itself to just general public recreation. I mean, we try to attract, and this is a lot with kids, is that there's a lot of kids that feel that they're never going to play at that level. So a lot of the activities that we provide, whether it's, sports programs or others, we have a no-cut policy in the sense that you come, you're a good teammate, you show up for practice, you're going to get some playing time, no matter what your skill level is. And our goal is to keep those kids engaged so that they're not sitting at home, they're not figuring out other avenues to kind of, to branch out, and they're not sitting home, playing video and that kind of stuff. So we really use this philosophy, and it's worked because, people come in and say, kids come in and say, well, I know I'm never going to play travel. I know I'm never going to play elite soccer or whatever else is out there, but this is giving me an opportunity to get exposure. It's socialization, you become a teammate, you learn all of those skills that normally wouldn't be available to you at the, if you couldn't make a team at a higher level. So we focused a lot on that.
Great, thank you. Can I ask a question about the professional services? That line's going up a little bit. Is there anything in particular, Dan, going there? It's going from 16.1 to 32.8?
Sorry, we're on 812?
Yeah, 812, organized rec. Yep, professional services. You can get back to me if you don't have it right at the ready.
Yeah, so within this budget, you don't really see it published here, but there's 5 sub-accounts
Okay.
for each of our recreation supervisor. So I was just trying to take a look to see which category that was in.
That's okay, you can get back to me.
I think largely it's just entertainment for a lot of our camps.
Okay, is that where it is? It's in there, not in temporary salaries? I wasn't sure. I know you do a lot of outside programming, tremendous amount of programming, but
Yeah, so it looks like the big driver is entertainment, softball umpire fees. And I could get more detail just to make sure.
okay. It just, I mean, again, the overall budget increase is 2.5%. That line just jumped out at me. Anyone else? Should we move on to 814?
Where are you, Laura, 814?
814, yeah, Cohen Eastern Greenwich Civic Center.
Sure.
Eastern Greenwich Civic Center?
Any questions?
Yeah, just, so you're about a year into the Civic Center being open. I know you mentioned some of the programs you're adding. I guess, what opportunities do you kind of see ahead to engage the community, build out the programming and whatnot there, both as it relates, I guess, some on the budgeted cost, but also kind of the revenues you generate, but really just for contributing to the community, what opportunities do you see now that maybe you didn't foresee a year ago?
Well, what we did was, when we opened the Cone Center, we decided that we were going to, the first priority programming would be for the public, okay? Because we had a lot of, before with the old building, we had a lot of partners, okay? And they all wanted a piece of the action. And they were, we were saying, well, wait a minute, now, we should be implementing programs that affect the public that we serve, number one. And then we have other partners like OGRCC and other groups and organizations. So we really, it was a change in philosophy and how the facility operated. There were little growing pains there because people were used to what they were used to. But as it stands right now, our programs that we are scheduling in there are very popular. They're being, drop-in basketball and pickleball and, tiny tots, as Dan said, they're all growing. And now we've started to take in a number of requests, people about, specialized programs that are coming in. Plant sales, pancake breakfasts, all of those things that are community-based. And that's the next level of programming that we're really interested in, is what's community-based and who are those organizations and what do they, what's the give back to the community? The Lions Club does a pancake breakfast. The Garden Club in Old Greenwich does a plant sale. So if they come in and use the facility or the outside of the facility, what's their program and what's their give back to the community? And that's the second line over the Parks and Recreation programs first. The second line are all these other programs that are great opportunities. And then we've also, not occasionally, but regularly, we get requests from outside for-profit organizations that want to run a sports camp. They want to do this, they want to do that. Those are pretty low on the list. But when we opened up the center, we wanted to change the opportunity and make it a community-based building. And I think we've done a relatively good job. April will be a full year. But I think we had some, we started off slow, but we've had some growing pains. But the request to use the facility has just been, it's just increased enormously. And we evaluate them based on that criteria.
Thank you. Next is community centers. Actually, can you just describe what this is? I forget. Is this the Coscob location, 815? It's very.
That's the William Yantorno Center in Pembroke.
It's in Pembroke.
Oh, it's in Pemberworth. Okay, excellent. Ice skating rink. Western Greenwich Civic Center. Parks and Trees admin. 822 Parks and Trees, Parks Playing Fields. The Tree Division. Marine Supervisory. Stop me anytime, people.
Sorry, yeah, can I just hop back to trees? It just, I think you've laid out, you've been removing, 400 to 500 trees per year, kind of storm related. One of your stated goals is to remove invasive plant species from town parks. How far along are you in that goal?
Well, if Leslie Tarkington was here, she'd ask us to give us a report, but we usually have a printout for Leslie.
She is here.
She usually
And
asks us for
Agnes
the
will be
printout.
asking for that report at some point.
We can get to that report, but we work in partnership with the Tree Conservancy folks. So, we supply some of the material, they supply some of the material, but our overall goal is to do some replenishment of about 500 trees a year. We've hit that target over the last 4 or 5 years, around 500. So, and we have an itemized report of where they're all planted, so we can share that with you if you like it, so.
Yeah,
I don't know where we are exactly in the number at the moment, but.
and, I mean, you know, I talked with our tree warden, Dr. Kramer, about this, and, you know, it's not the most comfortable answer, but, you know, invasive removal is going to be a generational task. I mean, you know, just the nature of how they grow, how quickly they are, you know, how robust they are, you know, they don't get attributed to diseases or anything like that. So, you know, we use a lot of strategies when we remove them. You know, we put blankets down so nothing can grow there and allow the other trees that, the domestic trees around the area to kind of take over that area before, you know, the invasives to come back in. So we apply a number of techniques, but it is going to be an ongoing issue that we're going to tackle for years to come.
And I think the Conservation Commission is trying to do its part for education to let residents know what are invasives and to plant local native plants. So I think it's not just, I mean, because once it's in town, it's everywhere.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
Yeah, it takes more than Parks and Recreation or a tree warden to do this, but our partners, the Conservation and the Tree Conservancy have been, you know, worked alongside of us. Greg Kramer, our tree warden, attends a lot of those meetings, and, you know, he has an expert background in this area, so he's been he's very knowledgeable and has made some great suggestions on how we can manage some of our inventory.
So going back to marine maintenance, we're going to talk about the ferries and capital, but maybe you can just touch on, this is one of those areas that I don't know if you haven't ridden the ferry, I don't know if you can appreciate the scale of the operation that we operate with our 2 islands and, of course, Todd's Point and Byron Beach, but
The ferry, back in 2019.
just make sure you're talking into the mic, Joe, sorry.
Back in 2019, the BET at that time we were looking at some long-term expenses for operating the ferries as far as capital improvements and stuff. So the BET provided us some funding, and we have a 2019 ferry study that laid out some information. The worst-case scenario is that we'd spend $8.5 million on ferry improvement, dock improvements on both islands, looking at different routing of boats, building one new boat, keeping one, and creating a triangular run, which would run in opposite directions, so you could just go to both islands and all this kind of stuff. It's kind of creative, but it was expensive. And some of it was a stretch in the sense that, you know, improving the docking facilities at Captain's Island could be a little bit challenging as far as how we would have to extend out from the current dock. So we looked at that, we looked at repowering the current fleet that we have. Don't forget, we have a boat that was built in 1937, we have one that was built in 1948, we have one that was built in 1963. You know, these are all old dog boats that have been, they're better, some of them are classics at this time. We've maintained them really well over the years in the sense that we've gotten longevity out of these boats. And we put some dollars into them along the way too. I'm not going to sugarcoat it in the sense that, you know, anybody who owns a boat knows that it's a hole in the wall that you throw money, in the water that you throw money into. And ours are no different because they're steel boats in the sense that, so they take a lot of wear and tear in that saltwater environment. We are in a program, what was decided from that report is that we would start with repowering the boats that we currently have, keeping the inventory that we have, and doing the repowering of the boats. So as we did the smallest boat first, which is the Islander 2, and when we opened up the boat, we took the engines out, we found out immediately, because then we have to get the Coast Guard involved, we had found out immediately that there was some steel structure work that had to be done. So the estimate that we had on the engine replacement, all of a sudden, you know, exceeds that estimate because we can't determine that until we get the engine out, like what really needs to be done. And so you know, that was the first boat. What we did was we take our boats into the shipyard for maintenance. We're required to do it every 12 to 24 months. And it's required by the Coast Guard. They come out and they inspect the hull of the boat, they inspect the interiors. And so when we do that, we're always subjected to what else is going to be on the list of things to do. And you can see our request in our capital request for this year, we kind of shifted away from the repowering the boat, the next boat, which would be the Island Beach boat, to doing some steel work, because we were in the shipyard in Long Island, and the Coast Guard came out and said, you need some steel work here, you need some plating work here, you need some deck work here. And at the end of the day, that number started to look like $500,000 or $600,000 of steel work before we can even put the before we can even do the repowering. That's the chance you take, when you start to, when you do this, or when we go into the shipyard every 18 to 24 months, okay? You're subjected to audio gauging the hull, you're subjecting to looking at all the support structures, the deck structures. I mean, it's a public transportation. They look at it as a public transportation vessel, even though it's for residents and guests. At the end of the day, we have to meet certain requirements in order to get our COI to operate the ferry boats. That request that we have in this year's budget, which is a shift from the repowering to doing some of the steel work on the large ferry boat that we have, is basically directly them telling us that if you don't start to do this work, or if you don't have a program to do the replacement, we won't certify the boat to operate. And so now we just have a 200,000-pound steel structure that we can't use, and it'll affect the program. So it just happens that when we were in the yard last year, they gave us kind of a heads up to say, you need to implement some steel replacement. So we shifted from that, the engine replacement, to try to do some of the steel work in order to get it back in cycle to do the engine replacement. We're going to stick with the 3 boats that we have. A new ferry boat in this climate, if we built it down south, and that's not in the New England states, would probably be $5 million to build a new one at this point. It wouldn't have the capacity that we currently carry. It would be 149 passengers versus over 200 that we carry right now. There's a couple reasons to do that, inspection-wise, construction-wise, cost-wise. But we've looked at a bunch of different programs. It's an expensive operation. It's probably the most expensive operation per person that the town operates.
That's kind of
But
where I was headed, in
It kind of
terms of
makes
ridership. and-
Greenwich, though. I mean, it's unique. We've been running this ferry service for 100 years and with different vessels, so it's something that people want. It's something that people look forward to each year, and it's very unique to our town. So it's an expensive unique to our town. So.
Thank you.
Sorry, you briefly made a mention of it. Just, can you talk to ridership? So if you look at kind of beach visits on the ferries to Great Captain's Island and Island Beach, those are both down significantly over the last decade, 15 years, whatnot. Just, can you speak to why that is? And again, like, you mentioned there was a program reviewing all this in 2019. Just what updates have been made as you've thought about the fact that we have lower participation or lower ridership, and alternatively, what efforts, if any, are being made to increase the ease or attraction of people doing this?
I'm gonna say this, but I may rely on Dan to look. I got some of our superintendents to give us more say. After we shifted in 2001 to beach access, our beach access program, that was a lawsuit that we were involved with. The ferries weren't included, and at some point there was a decision to include the ferry service to non-resident access. Okay, that's why you see some of those spike in some of the numbers and then some of the drop off. I mean, it was very easy, very convenient. We still maintained after the beach lawsuit, it was residents and their guests until some point where we opened it up to non-residents in the sense that, we see those attendance spike, and then we adjusted on how we actually, you could access pass, non-residents could access passes 7 days a week. It became highly usable. And what we did is we then shifted on how we sell passes and quantified how many passes we were going to sell. It was an outcry from the residents who used the facility that the facility was being taken over by non-residents. And so we shifted, even though we do have as a non-resident, you can buy a ticket to ride the ferry or use the facility. We have some limitations on how we manage that. And that's all I'd like to say about that, so.
Dan, do you have any data on ridership you could share with us? You don't have to do it now. We could do it at a later date, but if you have a.
We track it every year. It's a requirement from the Coast Guard, so we have it, dated back for a number of years. We could do so.
I mean, I do think this is one of those programs, as you alluded to, Joe. It's a beloved service. So when the boats are out of commission for whatever reason, that does happen. They're not ready for the start of the season. You hear it from the birders, you hear it from the people who are camping out there. And since we are such a boating community right on Long Island Sound, it's nice to give everyone access to that privilege to go out to those islands.
Yeah, we've tried some things over the years, we have like concerts, occasionally on the ferry, as well as some sunset cruises, things like that, to try to encourage ridership, try to get some creative ideas in that aspect
The
as well.
latest we did is we did a drone video of a ride on the Island Beach boat. Somebody I know has a drone. We put the drone on the boat so that if you've never been to Island Beach, you can click on a 2-minute clip, and it takes you out to Island Beach. It circles around to Captain's Island, and you get a whole drone view of what it's like to ride on the ferry boat, what the island's all about, what Captain's Island's all about. Kind of swoops down towards the Barn Pool, and then it comes back to the dock. But there's a lot of people that say, well, I've never been out there. I'm a resident. I haven't, lived here for 10 years. I didn't take the advantage of riding. Well, now you can just click on a link on our website, and you can see what you're missing, okay? The beauty of what you're missing, of being on Long Island Sound. And so as we did that kind of thing to encourage people that may not want to take the time to take the ride, but will look at this and say, it's something I should do, and I should patronize, I should participate and do this, have this great opportunity to be out on Long Island Sound. So we tried to do different things like that, and it was kind of interesting. So it's on our website, and you can click on there and take a 2-minute ride. If you're bored during the winter, during the snowstorm, you
I'm
want
just
to
going
see
to say,
something
on
great.
on this cold, snowy day in February, it
There you
sounds like
go.
something everyone should do. All right, 8:33, Marine Beaches. Any comments? Yes, you may, Elliot.
Thank you. Joe or Dan, do you know how much does a new or a new used ferry cost?
Well, I think, I tried to answer that a little bit, but a new boat, and it's all in the report, but we're talking about building a boat that would carry a capacity of 149 passengers, building it down south, because the price difference is dramatic. There's a dramatic change in price difference as far as the labor cost. And we're talking about approximately in this market today, about $5 million.
$5 million for a 150 person?
150 person ferry boat, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Marine Beaches. Any comments, questions? Doug?
Yeah, 2 questions. So in the documents you submitted and that were approved by the Board of Selectmen, you had increased the beach pass, and you commented earlier that you'll submit a updated revenue forecast. But just one question, let me take that to a broader question. And Parks and Rec is, looking back, has consistently, raises fees where appropriate. Can you just walk through kind of how strategically you think about that? Like kind of year to year, what fees you suggest increasing to kind of?
Well, our fee schedule is
I'm
about 20.
sorry, Joe. Can we just, we're going to get to the question, but let's just finish the operating expense and let's move to revenue and then let's answer that
Okay.
question. I'm not,
glad to answer your
I'm just
question.
trying to
When you're
be
ready.
mindful of time. This is our last day.
Okay.
Yep. So Marine Beaches, and then Marine Harbors and Boat Facilities. Harry?
Yeah, Joe, we've talked about creating a fund in this area, and, we had a good conversation a few weeks ago on that. Have you made progress on that? Have you got an objective as to when you'll have that prepared for us?
Well, we keep working the documents. I mean, I think you and I, Matt was there, and,
Yeah.
we kind of shifted for the time being our emphasis to try to get some more information together but this is something on the horizon that we should, I don't have any additional documents to give to you today, but it's something we could keep on the horizon about, what's the benefit, and whether it's, and what if that's something really we want to do, is to implement that into that revolving
Well, I
fund
think we
program.
certainly want to make that decision before the next budget cycle.
Okay.
But just to clarify, you're talking about the rink now, not the beaches.
Yeah, we can put that
The
on. I
marine
mean,
facilities.
it's a continuing conversation.
All right, so this
No,
is
this
new.
has been an ongoing
So
conversation
why don't
for
you bring everything
for a
up to
couple of
speed?
years.
Because I'm not up to
We've-
speed.
Why I'm
we've
bringing
had
it
this
up here,
conversation
because
with
it's boat
Harry.
facilities.
Okay, so
We
let's
rolled
give
Matt
it,
into the conversation this year,
okay,
earlier.
sorry, let's stop.
Yeah.
Let's just bring everyone up to speed because this is new to me. So can you just,
It's the idea to, that the dockage facilities and the facilities that are used by a relatively small constituency in the town docks and the storage facilities, be looked at to have it as a fund similar to the Gulf Fund. So there's an idea that it be self-supporting and be able to address what are substantial capital needs in the future. So that's been a discussion for a couple of years, and we, had it again with Matt and Sally, who are the Parks and Rec liaisons, a few weeks ago, and I was involved because this is my initiative. So that's it.
Thank you for the back.
Sarah, can I go back to 833 Marine Beaches? In your FY 26-27 operating plans, you mentioned exploring options to implement a phone app for the OnePass program. What, if anything, has been budgeted in this year to explore that program, and what progress, if any, has been made on the phone app-based program for the beach passes?
So we had a number of meetings with Vermont Systems. That's the software company that manages our entire recreation system on the payment and passes and rental. So one of the biggest issues that we had as we worked through this process is the lack of ability to prevent duplication from passes, even on the digital side. So there's no real way within the app, when we were talking with the developers, to prevent somebody from taking a screenshot of a single-use pass and sending that out to multiple individuals or even their own beach pass. And, so our beach passes, they do not have someone's individual photo on it. So, theoretically, somebody could take a photo of their beach pass within the system and duplicate it ad infinitum, and have that spread since it's a digital document there. So we have not gotten past that hurdle. We think it's important to keep the access to all of our facilities that are, under a payment to get access to make sure that we have that security there. So we are still having ongoing discussions. We would really like to implement this. We understand that, a lot of people have app-based programming for all sorts of things, whether it's concert tickets, whether it's your debit card, anything like that. So your train pass that I use every day, it's much more convenient than the physical asset. So as of yet, we have not implemented it because we're still trying to work through that feature. But yeah, it's definitely something that's a high priority for us.
Thank you.
And Doug, on that question, could I,
Yes.
so this is something you mentioned to me, and Joe, you mentioned the same point that Doug is making, about 6 months ago, and as I recall, the issue was the CR code, if the CR code could, change like you do for tickets, for events and so on, if you could have a dynamic CR code that changes every 30 seconds, you'd solve the problem, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely one of the ways that do it. Again, referencing like my train ticket, it's constantly, the CR code is constantly moving, so you can see it's not a still image.
Right, so you had pinpointed the solution for that in response to Doug's question, but the execution seems to be taking a long time.
Yeah, I mean, this is a nationwide company, and, sometimes it takes them, we have a great relationship with them, I'll say that, and they do listen to our needs. We've been one of the earliest organizations with them, and, they do try to update and modernize and change things, but sometimes they need to wait for kind of, feedback from a large group of organizations that are looking to push forward an initiative before they see it as a feasible solution on the business end for them. So I don't think it's gotten to that point. They're still exploring it. But unfortunately, we don't necessarily have a lot of sway in pushing that forward.
Okay, thank you. All right, and then I think that brings us to the end of operating. So let's go to revenue by department. So I think you guys win the prize for the most line items associated with revenue of all the departments,
21
so
pages, I think we
congratulations
have.
there.
Close.
And I think we are starting on page 10, yep. Starting with 801. Harry, you had a specific question too?
I have a question on this. I know you're still early on Cohen, but Cohen's a much larger facility than the Bentheim Western Civic Center, but its revenues are not, not that much higher than Bentheim. Is that still your growing pains? Have you got your pricing really appropriately set? Because I know that was an open matter the last time we spoke about it. Where are we in expectations perhaps about where revenues could get to on Cohen, and why isn't it higher, much higher than Western?
So you indicated there would be a revenue adjustment that you're going to be submitting to Agnes based on the increased fees? Is that correct?
Revenue adjustment that we're going to update.
Mike.
It's pretty much the, it has to do with the rink, and beaches, and boating, and the golf course. Some of this is, as Harry said, growing pains, trying to figure out what programs are going to fit. Some of it is also when we look at some of the user groups that we support, in the sense that, every great community group wants a discounted rate. They're not paying, believe me, it's a negotiation, because at some point they were paying not much, and we're trying to get them into a payment schedule for their program. And I'm talking about some of the things I mentioned just recently, like Pancake Breakfast, the Garden Club, because they give back to the community, so they're not paying based on the fee schedule, they're paying based on some negotiated amount. And so we're just taking the growing pains, and we feel that the fee schedule's in the right, the fee schedule that we have for this building is the right one. We just, how it's applied, and also how many programs we're going to attract into the building. In the sense that, and there also is some give because we're putting our own programs in the building. And obviously, we're not charging an hourly rate for a room rental than a program that Parks and Recreation is sponsoring. So we're charging for the program, but not for the rental of the space. So it's a learning experience. But we'll keep on top of it in the sense that we don't want to price people out. And that's basically what we've heard from a lot of the community groups that we support, is that it's getting very expensive, and, but the alternatives for them to look at other options are places like the Hyatt and some other places, and those are more expensive, but they look at us as a public opportunity too. So we'll have to just stay on top of this and see what the first, we're almost into 1 year. This does not, this revenue is just a projection for the next year.
Yes, and we did have an 8.7% increase, which is, somewhat modest, I would say, given, as Joe said, we still haven't gotten a year in, we're still figuring out, what the needs and expectations are of the community.
Have you got an expectation of where you could get this to be at some point when you're further along?
Now you sound like Larry Simon. We had this conversation when we did the Western Gun Civic Center.
It's a hell of a person to be compared
No,
to.
he said that you need to be at 75% of the expense, and I said, it's never going to happen.
No, I'm not
No, you
advocating
didn't say
along
that,
those
he
lines.
did, he did, back when we did the Western Gun Civic Center renovation. The only thing we can do is keep monitoring. We can press on a little bit, but at the end of the day, it's a public facility, and we're providing a big portion of those hours to public opportunity. So, and I don't mean it in all these other community groups that we're supporting, but yeah, we just have to kind of keep, what's the level that we want to be at? And what's the comfortable level for us and for you as far as generating revenue for this building?
Right. Okay, thank you.
Doug, you want to go back to your previous question if you want to summarize it?
I'll actually jump somewhere. Yes, thank you. Can we actually, if you look out the next year or two, this impacts revenue, but what do you see as the highest return investments you all can make to benefit residents and, also improve revenue collection, be it increasing digital payments? My wife was asking me to drop a check off with you because she didn't want to put it in the mail, online scheduling, increasing access for residents, some of younger kids for beach passes. What are what are the one or two areas where you see the highest return to both benefit for residents and in terms of access and use, as well as, financially the impact?
I'll talk about a little bit of Dan, talk about the rest of it in the sense that we've pretty much moved most of our payment schedule, payments for programs and stuff online, credit card, we have, you can see that we have to pay credit card, some of the credit card fees are absorbed in the finance budget. But at the end of the day, it's more, when people pay by credit card, it's directly, goes into Munis, it goes directly into finance, the money's there, we're not dealing with checks, we're not dealing with security for checks. It's a better process that we've been using, and people find it more desirable to register for the program, pay for the program. You don't have to deal with mailing a check and all this other stuff. And on the administrative side, it's definitely saved some heartache. And the refund, if somebody really wants a refund in the program, is an advantage by doing it by credit card. So that seems to be where we're trending. I don't know if we accept too many checks for too many things at the moment, but that seems to be, and we, and all of our offerings are online now, in the sense that we used to have them, some that you can do online, some that you can had to do in person or, by check. Now all of our program offerings are online, so that's a big advantage to getting people interested, motivated to sign up, and the ease of doing that. That's kind of what I have, but.
Yeah, and I mean, it is a difficult thing to juggle, trying to identify the benefits for the residents while maximizing revenue. Sometimes they're not compatible, so, but that is, it's a challenge that we strive for, definitely. Some of the things that we've done, not necessarily to just bring in revenue, but to reduce costs, is, putting out early bird special fees and increasing late fees. Because, one of the more difficult things for us, especially administratively, is we open up our residential verification January 1. And the amount of people from January to, let's say, mid-March before the weather breaks is, a minimal portion of the people, that we serve. And then as soon as the weather breaks, April, May, June, it is absolute chaos in our office. We'll get 15,000 calls a month. We'll have, 20,000 emails that we have to deal with. We have to bring in part-time staff to manage all of this. And so the more people that we can incentivize to get their registration done or get their Marine Pass completed at the earlier months to spread out that pain a little bit more, it helps us out operationally. It is a benefit for the resident because, if they're doing this a little bit earlier, they're getting the discounted rate or early bird rate. And then, on the back end, we can kind of recoup some of those operational inefficiencies by the increased late fees. If they're 2 weeks late, it's this amount. If it's 4 weeks late, it's this amount. So that's one of the philosophies that we've implemented administratively.
Thank you.
All right, so just to summarize revenues, you've got a proposed increase of $495,000. You're going to give the specifics to Agnes, and that'll be a positive adjustment to our budget.
Yeah, positive adjustment, so we'll go up over 8% as a whole department. Yeah, and I think going forward, in terms of timing, for getting the fee schedule approved at the Board of Selectmen level, we're gonna try to get there a little earlier, work with our superintendents to see if we can get those revenue numbers so they can be placed into the budget as best as possible while it's submitted, instead of doing it on the fly,
We can produce the fee schedule earlier. It's when the Board of Selectmen wants to hear it. So they strategically have said not before December 1st for multiple reasons. I mean, I've been doing this for a long time. I mean, in 25 years, it's never been before December 1st because sometimes it's an election year, sometimes it's not. And, so that they look at it more strategically of when they were to approve the fee schedule,
Well,
so-
one thing I will say, an observation that I think all of us have made, is that it is imperative that you look at your fee schedule every year or some cadence, because I think we're finding a lot of fees that just haven't kept up. Our costs are keeping up with inflation out of necessity, so it's something you just need to look at, and you guys have been rigorous. Every year you do that.
We go to the Board of Selectmen with our fee schedule, whether there's a change or not, every year.
Yeah, and I appreciate the philosophy of keeping it open and accessible, balanced out by what's reasonable and market rate. So I think we appreciate that. Should we go to capital and then the GRIF? Does that make sense? Do you want to do the GRIF first? Yeah.
Well,
Did you say, I missed it, did you cite a number that the fee schedule could go up?
At the beginning, they said 495,000.
495, thanks.
Yep. All right, so let's go to the GRIF. So that's in the same book, so let's go to that tab.
What would you like to look at, Mark?
The
We're
GRIF.
going to the GRIF.
Griff?
Yep. Go ahead, Harry.
I'm looking at the revenues on page 1 of the GRIF, and you're showing a 6% increase, but a lot of that came from, what seemed to be a dip in the rentals and concession last year or current year, and then back up for next year. If you're raising fees, an average of 8%, in the Parks and Rec, but you're not raising it that much here, is one question as to why not. And then the other question, thing is that one of the complaints I hear from people is that the spread for non-residents to residents is not very great. There's not a great premium for non-residents versus residents. So can you address both of those, please?
So you can address because Harry's looking at the old fee, the old revenue numbers.
Yes,
We have
so-
some new, based on the fee increases, we have a new revenue
For
projection.
the GRIF too?
Yeah, so the GRIF, we'll have the GRIF, marinas, beaches, and the rink will all have increased revenues that we'll send over.
Okay.
The GRIF, with the updates from the fee schedule, it'll be a 36.6% increase.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Or sorry, 14.62%. I was reading the
I
wrong
was gonna say,
line.
hang on, I'm a golfer. I don't know if I like that.
I apologize, I read the wrong item, but 14.62% increase.
Overall increase,
For revenue,
which
yes.
includes the rentals and concession,
Yes.
Correct.
which is a 16.6. So,
See, what happens with the concession stand is, when we're talking about the restaurant, basically, is that it's a public bid. So, we
Right.
set a minimum, and then we, it depends on how.
so that's why it swung in the current
That's the
fiscal
swing,
year?
Yeah, because it goes out to public bid based
Right.
on a minimum that we set.
Okay.
And so, and the goal is to have a 5-year agreement, is to get a percentage increase every year for the 5 years of the contract.
Right.
So.
Okay. And the spread between member or resident, non-resident, have
We-
you
we did
adjusted
a little
that?
You're not the only person that has said this, or you've heard from other people, we have too. We did make some adjustment here for the non-member guest. We were at, hold on a second, I've got to get to the right column here.
Well, you have increased it.
We did increase it, Harry.
I don't need the numbers.
Yeah,
I
I
just,
think we kept the membership flat and increased the fee for non-residents.
guests.
Yeah, for guests.
okay, sounds
Yes,
good.
we did. I can't put my finger on it.
Okay, thank you.
So, anything else on revenues? On expenses, if we could go to the next page, on the 4410, the maintenance of outside electric, I'm not sure what that is, it's going up by 100%.
You're at the GRIF again?
Yeah, I'm still at the GRIF.
Sorry.
Sorry, I'm at the expenses now.
Back to it.
It's on page 3, 54.
410. I'm just not sure what that is.
So just kind of globally in our 400s, I mean, it is a pretty steep increase for the golf course. Over the past number of years on a variety of, we have a lot of aged infrastructure, we have an aged restaurant building, and it's just cost more and more to be able to manage that. And I believe the outside electric has to do with our well and water pumping system. We've had consistent maintenance issues that come up that require third-party expertise to get that taken care of. That's where we actually went to an interim appropriation in November, so we already exhausted, essentially all of our 400s over a 3-4 month period for this fiscal year that we're sitting in. So we're just trying to get out ahead of that and make sure we budget for it accordingly, knowing that we're not gonna get a new system anytime soon, so we're gonna have to work with what we have.
Thank you. And then I think we'll address capital when we get to capital.
What is the contribution to other town?
Those are the benefits, since it's the
That's the
enterprise
benefits
system.
charge.
Yeah, mhm.
Okay.
So all our full-time staff.
All right, are we ready to move to capital?
Do we have anything in
We do have capital in the GRIF, but it's also in the capital
It's in
budget book.
the
so we
capital
can-
budget
I
book.
think we can
Okay,
just-
that's what I was just looking at.
Yeah. All right, so, sorry, Fleet, we are running a little behind. Thank you for your patience. This is rescheduled from the snow day on Tuesday, by the way. All right, let's start with capital. And we have an additional capital page, which you tell us where you want to take it up. Pickleball.
Pickleball.
Yeah, so the,
So we're starting with rink equipment on page 219. I mean, it seems like a shame because we're hopefully going to get a new rink, but I understand that the rink that we currently have needs a lot of work and a lot of maintenance. So this is, as I understand it, a plan to assess what we have and what might be coming up.
yes, and, you know, again, we had a separate interim appropriation because one of our compressors actually broke down mid-season. We have 2 compressors, so we can operate with one. We alternate every other year to kind of save on the mechanical maintenance side of it. But everything is just, yeah, so old. A lot of things break down. You know, there may be a separate rink discussion, but we're probably at least 3 years out, you know, from a brand-new rink. So we just want to make sure that we can review each and every component so that we can get there. Because I think the worst thing that could happen, even expense-wise, is if we break down and the ice isn't able to be maintained during the season. You know, we're going to have to rent like a portable cooling system or something like that. That is, I think was what, $10,000 to $15,000 a week every, and that was a decade ago or so.
It's $7,000 a week to rent a compressor if we're not operating. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's a trade-off of maintaining things or taking the chance that we're going to be without a compressor, without ice, or have a meltdown of some sort, and having to rent. So this is money invested. We do know the facility, hopefully the facility will be renewed, and we won't have these problems for years, but this is just like insurance to make sure that we can get through the next 3.
Bentheim Civic Center walk-in fridge replacement. My only question was, this is to replace the condenser and the evaporator if necessary. How much is a new fridge? What's the lifespan of a fridge? Are we extending the useful life by a significant amount by doing this?
Well, so when the contractor reviewed the fridge, it cannot be fixed at this point.
okay.
And so that is why we need a new one. I believe it was 15 to 20 years, the lifespan of the previous one. And I think, again, why we think it's important, we lost a couple of facility renters, you know, some cooking classes, I believe, things like that, because they couldn't use the fridge. But also importantly, if there's an emergency shelter needed in the town, that is where the Western Civic Center is where they would likely be put up. So we would like to have that fridge, you know, for medicines and things like that. And
Okay, so there's just, I think the wording on the front page says, it talks more about renovating the existing, but you're actually talking about a replacement unit for 25.
from my understanding, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Replacing the whole, you're replacing the whole unit or just the mechanicals? I'm still confused.
I can get clarification. I thought it was,
It says it's no
Brand new.
longer operable and that you need to replace the condenser, the evaporator, and the ice maker. So if you could just clarify, because the next says, it
Next
says,
page
yeah.
is
So just clarify
replacement
what
of
we're
walk-in
doing.
fridge.
all right, sorry for the.
I just
sorry
wanted to
for the
make sure
confusion.
we're not repairing something that's at the end of its useful life if it's time to
Yeah,
get a new
my understanding that it
refrigerator.
was the full replacement, but let me get clarification.
Yeah, if you
before
could,
that.
thanks.
Sorry for the
Okay.
confusion.
And then just provide an updated CIP if you don't mind. Okay, the next one is park equipment. There's a number of items here. I guess going back to your earlier point about the need for,
Yeah, this is just replacement
equipment.
park equipment. You know, each year we try to look at what our inventory is and what we need to kind of keep replacing in stock. There are no new pieces of equipment being requested here. So, you know, again, it's an investment in how we operate, productivity, you know, and getting the work done, so.
So, and just a question here, a broader one about park equipment, just, is any PNR, or is any of your equipment used for non-town of Greenwich purposes?
No, not that I know of.
Okay,
I mean, it's all done using the park system in schools, yeah.
thank you.
electric leaf blower equipment. This is to comply with the RTM or the ordinance adopted by the town.
Sorry, is this, because Jim Michael is here talking about his department, he suggested you might need another one. Will this request, the 255,000 request, allow you to fully comply with the noise ordinance?
Yes, that's the goal. Obviously, we worked with Public Works to do an evaluation of all of our facilities, because the main, a lot of the driving cost is to make sure that they're upgraded and, they're stored safely and certified, lithium ion containers. So yes, we believe that this is, funding should cover the cost needed to comply.
So you don't expect a second request after this? It's not in the plan, I just,
No, but this
Okay.
is kind of an ongoing emerging technology. The batteries, it seems like they need to get replaced every 36 months or so. We haven't reached a 36-month period on the existing ones. I don't think that would be a capital request, but it might be an operating impact in the future.
got it, thank you.
Sorry, park and court lighting upgrades. These are the light poles in Binney Park that have been a lot of high water issues in Binney Park of late.
The infrastructure of the lighting system starting to really show some wear because of the number of floods that we've had. And we're looking towards a goal of not only improving the system, but maybe make it a little bit more waterproof so that we can get some more longevity out of it, in the sense that a lot of those poles and boxes were set at a lower level. We're going to try to bring them up a little bit so that they don't, when we flood, we don't sit in the water. But it's definitely time to renovate, to look at this.
Harry?
Yeah, I have a comment from another member of the board, Josh Brown, saying that, Byram, wait a minute, we're talking about Binney, I'm sorry. He had a question about Byram Park.
Can I just, on this, the statement of need references, you have an associated reduction in maintenance and cost due to this investment. Just how much is spent on that maintenance work and what kind of operating costs will be avoided in the future?
Yes, we're working on getting that number for you, because it's kind of buried in our other maintenance costs, so that's on our list for that and the other questions that we haven't got to.
You can ask Josh's question about Byram if you wish.
Yeah, his question is that it has a relatively small ball field that isn't utilized all that much. I remember being down there, it looked like a full-size ball field, but
It's the one by the tennis courts.
I guess,
It's
yeah.
more, yeah, it's right there. And, it's used occasionally for practices, and it's also used by the folks that rent the pavilion up there. A lot of times they request that they can use the field for sports activities, family outings, those kind of things. It's not, because of the configuration and the real size, it's really not, doesn't meet a lot of the newer standards, but in times when we need field space, or, this is a type opportunity where somebody says, I just want to have some friends and play a game, we can keep them off the other fields and give them that opportunity.
And he also comments that maybe it's not in the best condition level-wise.
It's probably not as highly maintained as some of the other ones that we have, but, it is usable. It could use some attention, but, we're putting our emphasis on the other, 60 fields that we
Yeah.
maintain weekly. So, yeah,
Okay.
it's in a lower priority. I'm not going to say that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Josh, for submitting a question. Next is ADA Master Plan. So this one, I just had a question about the cadence. So the request for 27 is 300,000. Is that a specific project? And then it ramps down over the years. What, how are we pacing this?
So with this ADA master plan, we implemented this in Binney Park, Bruce Park, Byram, Coscob, Greenwich Point, and Montgomery Pine Needham. So those are, largely our most visited parks, and so we figured we'd tackle that first, and then, look at our various other parks throughout town. So each of the parks were evaluated in terms of estimated costs by our contractor. We're looking to get the Bruce Park playground done with our existing money. We're looking to develop that bid shortly. In terms of this round of project, we are looking to do, and again, the funding was kind of based off of these estimations, and then the capacity in terms of getting those completed within, a 1 or 2 year period. But we're looking to get Coscob Park, and the Montgomery Pine Needham completed. So it's, you know, it's all sorts of things. We had the consultant come and identify if there's any pitch in the sidewalk that would take us out of ADA compliance, any curbing, any access from the parking lot to the facilities. So that's kind of the scope of the project. But so within the funding that we're requesting for this year, it's for COSCOB and Montgomery Pine Needham.
Harry?
Yeah, maybe on the back of this sheet at some point, maybe in the future, you could provide that level of detail. Because
Okay.
it's just ADA master plan in all the years.
Yeah, we could get that taken care of.
Thank you.
Next is COSCOB field replacement.
So the carpet at COSCOB was installed in 2015. Normally, the life expectancy is 10 years. Since we don't play 12 months on that field, we can extend that life expectancy a little bit more. That's been our experience, like at the high school. So what we're really doing is just that we're trying to get a handle on the evaluation and like the condition and what we might be looking for in future years' budgets for carpet replacement. But believe it or not, it's put in 2015. So our experience at the high school is that we can get a few more years than 10 out of it. You know, because we don't play them 12 months, and our folks do a great job maintaining the current, raking them, and making sure we have proper infill. We have a GMAC test on all of our artificial surfaces every year to make sure that they're safe and playable, and all of that contributes to the longevity of the carpet surface, so. But we're rounding the corner, so this is a plan to look at it and see in what future year are we actually going to have to put in the carpet replacement.
Okay, so it may be that the $1.5 million replacement cost may not be in fiscal '28. And the
Well, we
study
know
will
better
tell
when we
you
get
that.
this information, yeah.
Yeah. Doug?
So so you're coming to the end of the life cycle here for this. You know, back in 2015, and we can maybe touch on this later, but just what was the relative cost of the two, doing artificial turf versus grass here? And then what is the cost avoidance from having turf? Just as you think about kind of the next step, like what is the comparative ROI on each choice? That might be, again, not for right now, but maybe.
You're opening a
Sorry.
can of worms.
Yeah, no, I understand. For
think-
another
I
time.
think we
The
may
only
want
thing-
to,
The value here is that it's playable in all conditions. We don't lose any field time, you know, so natural turf, I don't believe that we should convert everything to artificial surfacing, but at the end of the day, it gives us the playability and scheduling, and, yeah, there's a cost associated with it, there's no doubts about it.
We can save that for later.
very important topic, has been covered on the Board of Ed extensively, I can say from experience. Playground replacement program, this is a standard refresh cycle. Do you have any playground in mind for this?
Yes, Bible Street Playground, so,
Bible Street, excellent.
yes.
You know, again, on the back page, might want to detail.
Yes, I think we labeled it in the front, but I think the back end would be easier to just
Back would
program that.
ought to match the front. Okay.
Park improvement, this is basic maintenance, it looks like. Pomerantz and Tuckman Master Plan, this looks like a specific ADA project, is that correct?
It's two components. This was a request that we had last year during the BET process. There was a condition put on it for us to look for third-party financing, whether it's through grants or fundraising. Basically, what we're trying to establish here is an ADA accessible trail. This park was not in the ADA study that we did, but we did develop a master plan where we identified priorities and recommendations, had a number of public meetings where we heard feedback, and one of the features that we've heard of, that people would really want is a trail that's accessible for anybody. You know, you kind of wind through a little loop there close to the parking lot, and so that would be the implementation, just focusing on that area, as well as making structural improvements to the elevated boardwalk. At the top of the park, there's a kind of basic looking elevated boardwalk where you can kind of cross over to different section of the park. We're looking to improve the structure of it. We did an evaluation of the structure. It's safe to walk on and everything like that. But we still want to make some improvements to make sure that it's structurally sound for the future, improve the aesthetics, and then create a planting plan, because Like I said, it's a very basic structure. If we implement a planting plan with some tree removals, or not just tree, but kind of some pruning and vegetation, we can really open up that area, and I think it would be a really prize point of the park. So those are the two components.
Thank you, Dan. So just so I'm clear, just catch me up. So this was something that was identified in the master plan. It was thought that maybe there would be some private funding available,
Yes, and
but that it didn't materialize, or it's not ready, or we'd still be interested if someone came forward, but,
yes, yeah, that was the second component. So we worked with the Conservation Department, and they submitted on our behalf a grant to the state for this. So that is currently in process right now for the accessible loop trail. As well, we've had a number of, passionate residents that really love this park. They helped us through the master plan process. They helped us, designate this park as open space and parkland through the RTM last year. And they are working on trying to do a, fundraising through the community. We haven't had anything definitive yet. We're kind of in the discussion stage of implementing that. But, so we have those two components, the grant and the fundraising aspect.
does it make sense to check the reimbursement to indicate that a grant has been applied for and may be pending? I mean, I think, I understand the town should appropriate the money, but if there's additional sources of funding, I think we should indicate it, just so we know to follow up and.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. On the CIP sheet, update that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the grant came in after this was submitted, so we can update that.
Okay, the teleloader.
One of those
$90,000.
pieces of equipment that we currently don't own, but could help our operation more efficient, to be more efficient, safer, and, but again, we are getting the work done the way we're getting it done with a lesser piece of equipment, but all in all, looking at, time, some time saving and more efficient operation, we've identified this piece of equipment. I know we've listed it as a low priority. Obviously, there are other things within our budget that's more of a priority. So, but again, this is something we'd be interested in pursuing either now or maybe in the future, so.
Okay, thank you. I had to Google what a teleloader was.
It's a huge forklift, yeah.
We did talk about the Island Beach hull and keel replacement, so I don't know if there was additional questions. No. Replacement of a utility cart.
And these are just all replacements.
Yep. Greenwich Point electrical upgrades. I feel like we did a project at Greenwich Point on the electrical a few years ago. Is this?
Well, we just did a maintenance project on it. So this is the underground cable that we own. Town of Greenwich owns the cable. It's not part of Eversource. So it goes from roughly where the control booth is when you come into the point, all the way to the backside. I was here years ago when we did this install, 30 years ago. It's private. We have to maintain it. We have 5 transformers along the way that service each complex. And what we've seen is through various storms, the cable has been faulted a few times. We've had to put splices in it. Some of the transformers have been there for 30 years, sitting in that saltwater environment. The control box, which is right across from the gate, and that little concrete pillar, that concrete building there, is where the controllers are. All of this should really be looked at and maintained and upgraded, in the sense that the cable itself is warranted for 50 years, but that's not to say it's going to last 50 years in that kind of environment. But it's the other components, the transformers, the switching equipment, and all of that really needs to be gone through, and whatever improvements or upgrades need to be made, we should do that. The down part of this is that if we lose electrical power at Greenwich Point, it's on us. It's not on the utility to come out and fix it. So I think this is just, it's this time where we need to kind of deal with it. And this way we can get 30 more years out of what the improvements, or at least 20 more years as far as the cable's warranted.
I guess how confident are you that this $100,000 will, given there's nothing in the future?